Hi, I'm Andrea Dufresne. I'm a senior at CSC, and this is what we refer to as the CSC Nerd Herd for the APA Convention in Denver 2016.
I am Wacy Gallegos. I'm a senior here at CSC. I'm a psych major with a communication minor and future plans of grad school, hopefully in cognitive neuroscience, but we will see.
I'm Laurel Harris. I'm a junior here at CSC with a psych major and a minor in family and consumer sciences.
I'm Kate Mayu. I'm a junior. I have a double degree in psychology and criminal justice.
I'm Nehemiah Solar. I'm a senior here at CSC, and I have a psychology major with a minor in equine management.
All right, so we're going to go through these questions that are going to kind of outline our experience at the APA convention, and hopefully you guys get as much out of it as we did. So our first question is, describe your plans for work and/or graduate study, related or not related to psychological sciences, following your successful degree completion on CSC. So, I'm planning on going to grad school at the University of Western States, which is based in Portland. I'm looking at getting my master's degree in sport and performance psychology. I started that passion in high school with a sports injury of my own and figuring out the best way to get back into my sport. And I figured that having someone to talk to would have made it a heck of a lot easier. In order to reach this goal, I'm interning as the dance coach here at CSC and working on how best to motivate athletes and keep them going in their sports.
I am planning on attending grad school. There are a couple I'm looking at. The University of Oregon is one, so we'll see about those. I'm hoping to get a master's degree in cognitive neuroscience. The biological side of the brain really interests me, so I'm studying that using my internship by correlating the effects malnutrition has on neuron development, myelination, and other behavioral and psychological effects.
Sounds really interesting. I am looking at grad schools in Washington State. I'm trying to decide between Seattle University and Northwest University. Each are private universities, so they'll cost a little bit more, but I'll get the ministry degree that I want to go for with them. I'm looking into youth ministry, working in a church, or human resources, clinical psychology, or private practice are all options that I'm thinking about. And it just depends on which school I decide to go to and where I get in and what degree program sounds the best at the time.
I would like to get a graduate degree in forensic psychology. I really only got a psych degree because it kind of interacts with my criminal justice degree. I'd like to be a criminal profiler or study inmates, just figure out why they do what they do. So if there's a doctorate after that, maybe, but who knows?
Yeah, I am looking at a couple of grad schools in Pennsylvania if I decide to go for my master's first, which would be in marriage and family counseling. After that, or before that, kind of depending on how schools go, I'm looking at the University of Akron for their clinical psychology program to get a PsyD. That way I kind of don't have to spend the extra money on a master's program. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm looking into. Basically, far in the future, I kind of want to own property where I use animal-assisted therapy to help families kind of reconnect and that sort of thing. So
That's badass.
Mm-hmm. So, as you can see, we all have widely different interests in the field of psychology, which is why this convention was so great, because we got to listen to so many different speakers. Our next question is, list and briefly discuss 3 ways that your attendance at APA affected or even changed your decisions about the future. So,
I think we all definitely kind of got a glimpse into what our possibilities were for the future, because there were so many schools there and there was such a wide variety of topics. Like, I know going in, I was like, well, I'm going to, get this degree in forensic psychology. And then I was open to a whole new world of other options. It was like, we don't have to go into forensics just to stay in the criminal justice system. There's so many other options in psychology for me. So I thought the conference was really cool about that. Like just the variety of options we had.
Yeah, and it really opens up your mind to different ways to use your degree. I know I had never thought about going into research because my principal want of being in psychology was to help people, and I never really thought that research was applicable to that. But we attended a seminar about social justice and the ways that we use research to change policies to actually change lives on a more grand scale, which kind of pushed me towards the idea of research rather than just one-on-one counseling.
Because I was pretty set on just going for my master's first because I thought that was kind of my only option. Then I started talking to the folks at the PsyD program for clinical psychology at University of Akron. They had so much information. They were like, all these different things you can do. And their program is definitely one of those programs where if you aren't really sure what you want to do in psychology and you have a very broad idea, like lots of different things you want to do, they're definitely willing to help you kind of get to where you need to be with a degree and yet have enough knowledge to go into whatever field you want to go into. I also got to listen in on one of the Division 48 topics, and they are the basically kind of look into ways to, for lack of a better term, find world peace. And so it was really interesting because most of the things they talked about were how helping families, and especially in lower income areas, really would help decline violence in the world and that kind of thing. So it was really interesting to see how doing marriage and family therapy could actually help the world on a grander scale.
I definitely had my eyes open to a bunch of different possibilities. I think a lot of times getting into a psychology program, your mind gets stuck on a clinical psychology setting because that's the stereotype that you see portrayed in media a lot of the time. And some of the sessions we attended really detailed out different jobs that you can get with a degree in psychology and how that can change that field. One of the women that we heard from works in the California state legislature, and you wouldn't even think that psychology would be applicable there, but she could figure out how to solve disagreements between her peers in a way that made them more productive. So I think finding different applications for a very general degree was extremely helpul.
One of the colleges that I took a pamphlet for because I had free chocolate. I learned that if you really want to work with kids, you can work in toy factories and the part where they create toys, and they use your psychology degree to help them figure out how the toys are going to interact with the kids. Are they going to learn from it? Is that toy going to benefit kids all the way down to just toddlers?
That's
Colors, emotions, what they just the smallest thing. And I never had thought of that ever. I was like, oh,
yeah. Not only did the conference open my eyes to what I could do with my degree, going to human resources or instead of clinical psychology, like Andrea was saying, working with mediating people and handling other things than what is generalized in psychology. It also gave us a chance to network with some of the schools that we wanted to go to and actually ask questions rather than just try and find stuff online, because not everything that you want to know is on a website. And it actually helped me kind of settle on a grad school. I'm more interested now in Northwest University than Seattle U, just because they had a booth and I met with people and now they know my name, so I won't just be another name on a grad application. They'll see me and they'll go, oh, this person went to the conference, they're committed to this, they are interested in what we're talking about.
I had a really similar experience to that as well. Wasey knew what field I was interested in and saw the big words sport and performance psychology when I was walking right past them, and we got to stop, and the person that I ended up talking to for about half an hour ended up being the director of the sport and performance psychology program at University of Western States. So I got to talk to him about how he developed his program and what made me interested in it and different ways to get into the program. And after the conference, I was able to send him an email saying, thank you for your time. And now my name isn't just another name on an application either, it's a face with it as well. So networking was absolutely key at this convention.
An experience I had that was similar to that is Andrea and I attended the museum on one of the nights that was offered for the conference. And on the bus ride there, I met a woman who was actually a clinical psychologist, which I'm still interested in pursuing. And I talked to her a little bit, and she said that she attended the University of Lincoln, and that she gave me her email and told me to contact her, and she would set me up with the head of the clinical program there. I've contacted her, and we've talked a little bit, so it's actually given me kind of a step forward in getting to know who's actually I would be working with.
I think the conference gave us all a little bit more confidence in like going to get a master's and like the options that were available. Like, it was almost overwhelming how much information and stuff there was. But the people that were at the booths that did have your interests were very just personal with you. They wanted you to know that you wouldn't be in a name on application. And like, for me, I know that there was one booth with forensic psychology. One booth. But the people at that booth, like, we saw them multiple days, and they recognized, they were like, hey, Kate, you know, how was your session yesterday? Like, so now, like, when I email that particular woman, she's like, how are you doing, Kate? How are your classes this semester? Like, so I think as far as like our future and our grad plans, that was just really beneficial, that personal level of meeting these people that come from these schools and just having them really care that we wanted to go to their school. It wasn't just, oh, you're just another person. I think that was just really nice.
It definitely made it seem like more within reach. Like,
I
feel like trying, like, looking through grad schools and even trying to find like that program that, like, you know, because I don't know, I always have this image in my head, like, you know, you're gonna find that perfect program, it's just gonna magically appear in your lap, you know. And so just actually looking through it and wading through just even all the names and trying to make sure you find a good program was absolutely mind-boggling. And so just talking to people on that level definitely made it seem more like, oh, well, there's this, and this, and these will really help you, and these people are here to help you. They're not going to just look at you and be like, well, you should know this already. So that was kind of really just helpful for me.
I also thought they made it feel like we could actually get into the schools. Everyone talks about how hard it is to get into grad school, and you need to be in all these activities and all these clubs. And yes, it is good to participate in clubs and activities, but it's okay if you have a job and you're a little busier than some of the other students who just have free time to just be involved in all this stuff. I know most of us are able to have a job and still be involved, which is great. And it's going to help us on those applications.
It's also the hardest thing we've ever done.
Yeah. But even if we are,
we had that talk with
those people made us feel like it was okay to be a little lighter on your schedule, and we could still get into the school we wanted to get into, and that they would help us do that.
You didn't have to be complete overachievers.
Yeah, pretty much. Like,
but it was also great to, like,
not that we're slacking.
See people who were like passionate about their fields that are like just as passionate as you about it, because then you had something to connect over, and like Andrea said, you could stand there and talk to somebody for half an hour about.
And they were so excited to talk to you.
Yeah, and
they were so happy to talk to you.
They were so ready to give you information about their school and be like, give me your name. What do you want to do? So it was really.
We're not just a name on the paper, but now we have a face to their school.
Exactly.
As well.
And even afterwards, they were contacting us. Sending emails and stuff like, "Hey, we talked to you. Here's the information you wanted."
And that was part of being at the convention as well. Was that each of the badges that we were wearing had a QR code that each of the booths could scan, so that they knew this person stopped and talked to us. We should get information to them. So that they weren't overlooking anyone. They had everyone's name that was interested in what they were talking about. So it was more of a personal outreach from their point of view too, that not only could they give us their email, but they also had access to ours and could get in touch with us very easily.
All right. Yeah, so the third question is, what professional presentation did you find particularly relevant and why? I'll start with this one. So my favorite presentation was this one on ADHD.
Oh my god!
And I have ADD. I have for a long time. And like for me, like the speaker was just probably my favorite one. He was just blunt, in your face, and he just some of the speakers.
The speaker makes all the difference.
The speaker makes a difference. Like if you went into a session and like your speaker was blah 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 blah, like you literally heard blah 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 blah. Like
interest was gone.
I mean, it's so hard. So this guy literally like brought down what ADD and ADHD are to an understandable level for anybody who knew nothing about psychology. He made it so simple. And it was perfect. It was like I was reading about myself on a screen, but like in the most simplistic way possible. And he basically, what I got out of it is that people with ADD like can't focus because they don't have the proper emotions to certain actions or you don't have the proper responses. So like, whereas like Andrea might freak out because she has a test tomorrow and she needs to study, I might not have the proper emotions like coming from my amygdala to like make that connection, so I just might not care about that test. And it's not that I can't focus, it's just that I don't have that right connection. And he told some really funny stories that are not quite appropriate.
I was wondering how far you were taking this. I was like, I know what comes next.
But he was definitely my favorite. Yeah. Besides the movie Inside Out, that was also
one of the ones that it was actually on the 7th, so one of the last days. I kind of slid in there at the last second. Her name is Esther Perel. She's a sex therapist, and she works with married couples and families and stuff like that. She's actually from, I want to say Bolivia, but I know that's not right. Belgium. She's from Belgium, and
we're very far apart.
I know, but they both start with B's, so you kind of got to roll with it. But some of the things is just the way that she brought relationships onto such a level where just the way she thinks about things is so much different than American therapy is. And just her therapy with couples is all about, like, they need to connect to each other and they need to find a way that they're comfortable to open up to each other and discuss the things that they need from their relationship. Right. But this one woman who is an American marriage and family therapist came up and she was like, well, in our schools, they teach you that the couples must reveal everything to each other. They have to tell each other everything. And if they're not willing to do that, you need to tell them that you can't work with them, is basically what Americans are taught for marriage and family therapy. And her thing on that, she's like, that is ridiculous. If it's not healthy for the relationship, it's not going to be healthy for the couple. Yeah. If they don't need to say it, there's no reason for that. They do not need to say everything. And like Americans think of each other in relationships as, well, I own you. You know, you're mine. And that's not how relationships are. As a society, that's how a lot of people think about each other when it comes to relationships. And her thing was like, we need to break that cycle because it's not, you know, I own you. It's we're a team in this and we're working together in this relationship to get to what we want out of it. And so it's just really amazing to see that kind of different perspective and the way she communicated it to people who had been taught something completely different their entire lives. And through their entire career, they thought all these different things, and she was able to get them to see a different perspective without confronting it, like head on and making people just want to walk away.
Did she have a big Q&A at the end of hers?
Yeah. It was a huge group. Like she had 3 microphones set up for different questions. She was a really big speaker, so that was cool.
That's awesome. And the presentation that I found the most relevant was on leadership. And this was kind of a unique presentation in that you had a psychologist interviewing the former CEO of Xerox when Xerox was going through bankruptcy and how this individual pulled the company out of that and motivated her team members, not her employees, her team members, and to get them to stick with the company even when the rest of the world had kind of lost faith. She kept them going. It's really interesting to hear about how she managed the negativity and the struggles and having it be such a public issue and still save face throughout the whole thing and do so very elegantly. And then when it was time for her to pass the gauntlet and give up her CEO position and give it to someone else, how she trained that person to take her place without anyone in the company knowing it, other than there's a change of name. So it was interesting to hear from her and not just have it be a lecture. It was really an interactive presentation on how she handled leadership, and it was so widely applicable too, not just within her company. There were bits and pieces that I would write down just because, oh, well, I can apply that to my current internship or any group project. It was things that could be done on a large scale or a small scale. So I found hers the most beneficial to me.
One that I found really beneficial was actually the first session I attended, and it was using a social justice framework to affect change on a global scale. And what they talked about was using psychology not as its like directive clinical approach, but using research to show these marginalized and minority groups and how to help better their lives to live in a world that is dominated by a majority. One of the ladies spoke about dementia and the way that we just overgeneralize people with dementia. We put them in this box automatically and we don't even think about it. So it just kind of showed the ability of research and taking it out of the ivory tower of academia and putting it in the real world and making a positive change for people rather than just writing textbooks. Because I feel like a lot of what an undergrad is reading textbooks and holding psychology in this ivory tower they used a lot, and just kind of having it and not using it. So to hear people speak about having that knowledge and using it to make a change was extremely beneficial to me.
And that one was really interesting too, because I believe there were 3 or 4 speakers in that presentation, and as this lady speaking about dementia was getting up to do her piece, the other speakers were like, we're really interested to hear about yours because we have no idea how it applies. So even within the same topic, other psychologists are still clueless about how widely applicable it really is. It takes one person thinking outside the box to really make a difference.
I thought the most interesting session for me was the one about understanding acts of mass violence, which I felt like was really interesting, especially just because that seems to happen more often in our society than it has in previous years. So just to have a whole session where they talked about why this thing happens was really great. Especially, I mean, as a Christian, people ask why bad things happen all the time, and who has the answer to that? Christian or not, no one's going to be, well, so it was really nice to sort of get an answer. Like, it's all about how a person is treated as a child, and of course their development and their relationship with their mothers. And most of the time, these people that commit these acts have absent fathers, so then their relationship with their mother is too close, and it's an unhealthy attachment. And basically, it's a cry for help, and they're trying to make other people feel as bad as they feel.
I think when we went to my favorite quote from that one is if I kill these people, I'll suddenly get the love that I had wanted all along, because like they suddenly get this fame or recognition. And I thought that was a really interesting way to kind of look at that some people would go that far for simple attention that plenty of other people in the world want as well. So it's just
well, that was kind of amazing too, like, because I was telling you guys about the Division 48. That's what they work with, is like the family that they were talking about for their town hall meeting, was the families that these kids are coming from, and this is the pattern that we're seeing, and how can we stop that pattern? Like, one of the guys was basically he's a family therapist, and he gets parents all the time who bring in their problem children, and they're like, well, fix my kid. And he's like,
have to have your own
you have to work with your kid. He's like, you need to, like, you should have been here from the beginning, finding out how to work with your kid. And they were talking about how there's so many different ways out, like books and everything out there for parents to learn how to help their kid, but the parents that aren't reading those are the parents that don't have the money to buy those books, and so they're not taking the steps that need to be taken to work with their kids, and their kids who have the issues, they don't have the money to go or the time to take their kid to get those issues fixed, so it just grows and grows and grows.
So guys, the next question says, your 3 days at APA encouraged you to reflect on your CSC experiences. So the first part says, what do you see as the most important strength of our psych program, undergrad program here at CSC? And I think we all kind of talked about it, and we all kind of agree that the professor availability is really nice. We all feel comfortable on a personal level to go see our professors during class hours, after class hours. We've even gone in on weekends to see them, and that's really nice, because if you do have questions, or say you're writing a paper and you got a last minute funk you need to figure out, our professors are really readily available, and that's kind of nice, especially with us being a smaller school. I think that personal level really helps.
Yeah, they're really good at getting back to you the same day. If you email them, it'll be an hour or a few hours later when they check their email, and they'll answer your question right away, and it's really nice. And I also thought that even after they're done teaching you the material and you go on to other classes, all the material relates, and you can use stuff that you've learned from previous classes in your current classes. And it's not just committed to short-term memory, it's more of a long-term memory where you remember, oh yeah, we talked about Skinner, we talked about Pavlov, or we talked about Freud stuff in this class, and now we're talking about it again. So even after we're done with the classes, we remember what we talked about.
It's a deep understanding. It's not just memorize and get rid of it.
Yeah, to expand on what Laurel said, I've definitely had some classes here that have made you think about what you've learned. Like they understand that you have this base knowledge, but I think it was my culture and psychology course. The teacher would really poke at ideas that were we viewed as normal, like homeless people. We just kind of shrug them off, but she would very much poke at why are they homeless? What could cause this? And it was using a higher level of thinking to branch out than just regurgitating information.
And I think too, like a lot of our upper division psychology classes, which all of us are taking or have taken, are online. So then having this relationship built with our professors ahead of time makes it easier for us to send them an email or call them or stop by their office hours, say, hey, I need help, and they know who we are, they know our background and how far we've come, and are really willing to work with us on an individual basis so that all of our needs are met. And I think that comes from having such a small department that we feel comfortable going in and asking for that help, as opposed to maybe some bigger schools where in a basic psychology class you might be in a lecture hall with 500 kids and
the teacher doesn't even know your name.
Yeah, you're just a name on a roster, whereas here you're really an individual and your professors are trying to help you succeed in every way they can.
I think all the small classes help too, because we all, you end up, Laurel and I have had at least 5 classes together, so you end up in the same classes too. You end up in the same classes with a lot of your classmates, so like say you're by off chance your professor can't help you, at least with the smaller department, the smaller classes, I can go to Andrea, I can go to Laura, I can go to you guys and just be like, hey, you took this class last semester, hey, you're in this with me right now, can you help me? Like, I think that's a big positive for our program.
Well, and I think for that, like, when it came to the convention, we were already kind of comfortable enough with each other, and then also, like you guys were saying about I think our professors try really hard to make us relate the information back to like real life or something like that. So, for example, like in Mark's classes, he always has his, what's up in the morning. So, what's happening in current events today? Well, how are you going to relate our psychology class to those things? Like, what did we talk about for history of psychology that could relate to this or something like that? And it just really helps kind of cement those topics. And then I think even when we were at the APA, when we talk about the sessions and that kind of thing, we bring in different like things that we've learned from our classes and relate them to the sessions that we're going to, because we're already in the habit of relating things to what we're talking about. So
the second part of this question says, what about our program clearly needs improvement, or in some cases added. I guess you guys are reevaluating and you want to know our opinions.
We sort of talked about this before, and I think you've kind of taken care of this, but maybe not as much as we need to. The thing with internships, and you guys kind of did away with, in the past catalog year, getting rid of the need for internships because they were so hard to find.
I'm not required to have one.
But now I think you replaced it with an empirical research project, and I think some of us thought that class was going to be different than it really is. We thought we were going to research a topic that we are specifically interested in that has to do with our future field of study and something that we could really get into and find a lot of information on. But really it turned out to be just another assignment to do for an entire 16 weeks.
Another thing with that too is that I feel like when it comes to the internship, like just looking into trying to apply for schools and what they want out of your application, a couple of the ones I looked at were like, well, what experience do you have in this field that makes you think that you would be a good fit? And it's so hard to find that experience that even like wanting to come to them with an application, even if like I can't imagine if you don't have an internship and you only have the empirical research project, coming to an application going, well, I don't have outside experience, so I don't know what you want from me. So, I think that's kind of one thing that worries me about getting rid of the internships. Again, like, yes, I know they're really hard to find, but that was kind of something that worried me about doing the empirical research project.
The empirical research project, we just believe that it prepares you if you're looking to go into a research setting.
But a lot of us aren't.
And a lot of us aren't.
Most of us aren't.
Yeah.
It's one of those research psychology is not as big here at CSC, and a lot of us are looking for the working with people aspect, and finding those are really hard for internships. One of the things we heard at convention was the best way to get a job is to have a job. Well, our internship is our first try at that. If we can't get one, we're kind of out of luck. So building resources to look into internships within the psychology department. I feel like a lot of us probably didn't even know where the internship office was on campus until probably this semester, maybe last year, and even then they expect you to know what your internship is before you get there.
Yeah.
They aren't going to hold your hand through the process and help you find one. So I think expanding those resources within the department would be extremely helpful, since an internship has been required for so long. Did you guys have any other?
Grad school.
Oh, yes. One thing that is kind of a downside of our department is grad school isn't a main topic that we discuss.
At all.
Yeah. Because the teachers will ask you, they're like, oh, do you plan on attending grad school?
And that's about it.
And then do you know which one? And we'll say one and they'll say, okay, cool.
Sounds good,
That'll
you're on
be
the
the end
right
of it.
track.
Yeah.
But I feel like our department needs to create maybe even, I know we've talked about like a psychology club, which needs to be student directed, of course.
I
But
think they started one of those,
It is
actually.
starting. Yeah.
they started a NAMI, which is National Association of Mental Health, if anyone's interested.
Are you part of that
I
list?
am.
Oh,
We had our
good.
first meeting yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
On a
I
Friday?
know Marv
Oh.
brought it up, so that's what I was wondering.
I think I was sleeping.
But
That
like
work.
having like sessions where a teacher comes in and talks about what is grad school, what you do in grad school, like the process is, because there's one thing I didn't know about until the convention was the difference between a PhD and a PsyD, and the fact that one,
Huge.
and because a PhD you go through masters and then your PhD program, whereas PsyD you can go a little more directly into it.
Well, and with psychology, you can get, most psychology programs, you can get your master's while you're getting your PhD
True.
for a lot of them. So that's really something that I didn't know, and that was a little scary.
Yeah, and it's just we have limited resources unless we go directly to you, which is taking initiative for your own education, but.
We
Also,
don't know what questions to ask,
Yeah.
essentially.
You guys, I had a hop history of psychology hop class. That's what I called it.
You're
That's what it spells. So, in my hop class last semester, we had our professor was new, and she had just gotten her master's from CSC, and she spent a whole class period letting us ask her questions about the master's program at CSC, taking the GRE, doing this. Like, she literally spent the whole class period. And even after that 50 minutes, we all did feel better. Like, we had learned something and stuff like that. But even after that, we all still had questions. We all still felt like we needed more information. And that wasn't even a part of our curriculum. She was just nice enough to let us ask her these questions. So I feel like Wasey's right. At some point, that's going to have to be addressed, because we all want to go on and get our masters and stuff, but if you guys can't help us, or like aren't going to help us provide that information, then we're kind of lost. Like,
yeah, I think Wasey is right. It's taking initiative for your own education, but I also think that it's better to have the personal touch of people who have already been there and have done it successfully and got into the schools they wanted to get into and are studied, and our professors who are doing what they want to do and they're teaching. And I think it would be really great to have at least one 50-minute session like Kate had, or even
just
two,
something.
or something where we go in depth and we talk about what to do for the application, what people really want to see, what we're doing that really matters, and what we could drop and fill with, use our time better.
Well, and another part of that too is like, if each student came into office hours one-on-one to have this conversation, how many times are you going to go through the same list? Whereas it could be a thing where you say, okay, this Tuesday at 7 p.m. in this conference room, we're going to meet and we're going to go through all of this information, and have the students that are interested in going on to their masters come to that session. And that way, we're all getting the same information. Nothing gets left out. You're not saying it 100 times. We're not missing it taking the initiative is going to the meeting, not necessarily scheduling it one-on-one. So something like that would be extremely helpful. I think more people want to get their masters than are letting on, just because they don't know what steps to take.
And then being in that larger group setting and feeding off each other's questions and ideas, because I know for me personally, I don't always have questions, and I hear someone else ask a question, and then I'm like, oh yeah, I did have that question. I just didn't think about having that question at this time.
Yeah, that's definitely a huge thing for me too, because I never know which questions to ask. So when I go in and talk to a professor one-on-one, they're like, oh, well, what do you want to know? And I kind of sit there and I'm like, well, what can you tell me?
I want to know everything.
Yeah, exactly. So sitting there and hearing other people be like, oh, well, what about this? It gives me a bit of a narrowed scope of what questions I need to ask, or what I'm actually even wondering about, because grad school is this huge concept to us, and giving us information about it makes it more concrete and
Makes
able
it feel
to
more
tackle.
attainable.
Absolutely.
All right, so question 5 says, given your reading classes and APA Denver experiences, what new directions will psychological sciences cultivate in the future? I think for me, after going to the convention and Maya talked about it a little bit, there's so many ways to apply psychology that you don't think about. I just think for me, like in the future, I think psychology is going to expand in so many ways. I think it's not just going to be in the criminal justice system. It's not just going to be in the mental health professions. It's not just going to be in counseling. Andrea said it was in legislature. And I mentioned earlier, you can work at a toy factory. You can work at Disney with a psych degree. You can do anything, almost anything with a psych degree. And I think as the future goes, I think it'll just keep expanding. And I think what's going to happen is globally we're going to realize that psychology isn't just in part of our lives. It's an aspect of every aspect of our lives. And I think that's really where it's going to expand.
Yeah. One thing that was fairly clear in one of the sessions me and Andrea attended, which was alternative paths with a doctorate, that psychology is an extremely marketable degree. There was a lady who worked in legislature, and she could get things done that people couldn't because she understood how to mediate. There was a lady who worked for Facebook. She worked in the research aspect, and there's actually a suicide prevention area of Facebook. And many of the people who work there have psychology degrees. I think 75% of them were psych majors of some sort with a master's at minimum. There was a man who was a conservational psychologist, and he was trying to figure out ways to. He was far more like animal behavior psychology in creating humane environments for zoos or ways for people and animals to interact, and he had started this all by being an architect and was building pins for animals and asked a simple question of why do they do that? And somebody pointed him to psychology research, and he now has a doctorate in psychology, but he started out just by asking a question, and now he's got this entirely new perspective of how people and the world around him works. So understanding how people, why people behave in the way they do is extremely important.
I think too, because psychology is spreading to so many different fields, it's going to be less taboo and maybe more widely understood. Currently with where I work, I get asked a lot, oh, do you live here for school? And when I say yes, they ask about what degree program I'm in. When I say psychology, everyone automatically says, oh no, I shouldn't be talking to you, you're going to psychoanalyze me.
Tell me what I'm thinking.
Tell me what I'm thinking.
Everyone's heard that.
It's so hard to be like, actually, that's not even the field that I'm interested in. I'm learning about it, sure, but I'm not going to sit here and psychoanalyze you because I really don't care how you feel about this.
I really don't care about you.
People, the big thing with psychology in the media is, if you've ever seen Freaky Friday, the mom says, oh, just say, and how does that make you feel? And I think that's how a lot of people view psychology degrees is, I'm going to sit here and you're going to tell me something and all I'm going to say is, well, and how does that make you feel? Well, I don't really care. I care about why you feel that way, not necessarily how you feel. So I think once psychology expands to a bunch of different places and different fields, more people are going to understand it, and there's not going to be this stigma around being a psychologist or talking to a psychologist or hiring a psychologist because you don't know what aspect that person's actually in.
And even for students, sometimes we get this tunnel vision of, because I'm a psych major, I can only do these certain things, when in fact getting a psychology degree opens up so many doors. Like Kate is a legal and psychology major, and those two together helps her understand people and the legal system more than anything. So
that's why I got it.
Yeah,
so I can study
exactly.
people and study them in the environment I want to study them in.
So it just gives you this extra step of understanding different areas.
I think in addition to understanding more areas, psychology is also moving towards better treatment of minority groups. I know I went to multiple LGBTQ sessions, and they talked about how psychologists and people in general really just don't know how to talk to these people and how to help them.
They don't have the training.
Yeah, how to treat them. And people said that they didn't feel like they had adequate enough training to treat them, but that they felt confident treating them anyway. And I thought that was crazy. Yeah. So I think that psychology is going to move towards getting more programs for these minority groups that actually specifically teach people what to say and about the community in general.
Just more information.
And, more information.
Because if you, Laura and I went to a lot of the same sessions on that topic, but literally it was 30%, 86% said they didn't have the right amount of training, but 93% said they felt comfortable, they could treat the person.
Anyway.
And it's how do you feel like you don't have the training, but you can treat them?
Yeah, treat them anyway.
I don't think it works like
that. And then it sounded like a lot of people were being turned away with real problems from those communities.
Discrimination.
Because, a lot of discrimination even within the psychology community. So I think that we'll move towards better training and treatment for people in those minority groups and a better understanding of those people.
I think just that the world of psychology is just expanding into so many different fields. that it's just going to keep expanding, especially as people start to understand psychology more and stop thinking about it as like, the dude sitting on a couch going, well, how does that make you feel?
Or just,
or just,
Freud and
or
the
someone
one
who's
thing
crazy.
they know about Freud.
Yeah, exactly.
Not everyone thinks psychology is just Freud, and
yeah,
that's
there's
the
so
only
much more
person.
than that.
And he's just
And-
a blip.
Tell us how you really feel.
There's just so
Freudian
many,
slip there.
there's just so many things that psychology can expand into, and even if you just have an undergrad in psychology, there's so many things so many different ways that you learn how to look at the world, and
It opens
just,
your eyes to.
Yeah.
I know in like criminal justice, it's just a.
it's amazing.
Oh,
Some of
yeah.
the things
Yeah.
you see. Well, like even in just some of the most like the randomest classes, like I feel like if people hear like I've got an equine management minor, I get the weirdest looks from people. Like I told one class that I wanted to go into animal assisted therapy, and they're like, "Are you planning on working in Hollywood and treating the Chihuahua?" And I'm like, "No."
But horses, but you having an equine minor is actually great because horses are great therapy animals.
Yeah.
They're very they're
It's
very
lovely.
intuitive.
They're
They're very
gentle.
in with emotions. My little sister, she's adopted, and she's her bio mom has schizophrenia and bipolar, and my little sister's got ADHD, and she's bipolar, and she's 10 already.
Family.
And she works with horses, and like honestly, just the responsibility from taking care of the horse, and like when she comes home, you can see that she feels better. It's like she says to my mom, "The horse understands me," and it's just so like even the most like random out there thing you could think of, like an equine management minor, actually relates to our field, and I think that's what we're all trying to say is the field is expanding
Well, and
so much.
Like my freshman year, I came in and I was looking for a minor, and my advisor at the time told me my only options were FCS,
Family Consumer Science.
Family Consumer Sciences, and a marketing degree. Because that's all psychology. That's all we offer for our psychology minors. That's what I was told, and I'm looking at it and I'm like, so there's the only minors offered. That's what I thought. Like that was my thought process. And then I went into the start office and I was like, well, I need a minor, and they're like, oh, okay, here's this 3,000 pages of minor options. And I'm like, wait a minute, I can do any of this? And they're like, yeah. And I was like, but it had to relate to to psychology, and the woman I was working with was like, well, any of them can relate to psychology, and I was like,
even she knew.
Yeah, she got it.
She got
Back to
it.
our
It was like
department
the
needing
greatest
more
thing.
information
Yeah.
about, and really giving us the correct information about what we can do with our degree and what are our options really.
Yeah.
And just like sitting down with the freshmen and letting them know what
That's a
opportunities.
great idea.
Yeah.
Like
I felt like I was so overwhelmed as a psych major as a freshman because I was like, I don't want to sit on a couch and have people bitch at me, Like I didn't want to sit there and have people tell me how crappy their lives were.
No one wants
And
to do that.
honestly,
You would just give them a flip
one
response.
of our
Some of us aren't as sensitive as others.
Dr. Tingley, when she was here, she saw that I was stressed one day after class, and she was like, "Kate, what is wrong with you?" And she just sat down with me, and she was like, "No, oh my gosh, no, calm down." She was like, "You have so many options," and it really took her telling me that for me to realize that there were options. So
yeah, I think definitely having a meeting with the freshmen, even like before the school year starts, because we have all of those floor meetings and alcohol meetings and whatever else. But
in
beyond
the department meeting at new student orientation,
Yeah.
it would be a good time to
Yeah.
address different career
And-
paths.
Yeah.
and going beyond the just setting up a schedule and being like,
Yeah.
oh, you have to pick a minor eventually and this and that, but sitting down and being like, here's what you can do
Yeah.
with your future.
the list would be 10,000 pages long.
Yeah.
Right, true.
It's
Well,
not.
I
It's
mean,
not.
I think it's one of those things where, like, when you're, little, they tell you the sky is the limit, and the more you go through education, they go, well, actually, your limit's here, and then it's here, and here, and here.
Can't
and
go
here.
above this cloud
And then,
line.
yeah.
Don't
Yeah.
be
But
Do not
then, like,
Costco.
when
Do
you-
not collect $200.
I feel like once you get into college, everyone kind of needs that little moment of, well, the sky really is the limit. You're okay. You can actually go back to that, and you do have those opportunities. They may not seem like they're there, but they really are. And you don't even need like the 10,000 page list of what you can do, but just someone telling you that
you can
you can do whatever you want.
You
Is
just need
the
a little-
most
Yeah, you
A
can
little
get a
push in
job
the
in
right
something that
direction.
you like. You don't have to hate your job or your career. You can like what you do.
Mhm.
So basically, the last question is just kind of wrap this up with what we liked about the APA convention. And I think my favorite part, honestly, was just spending time with these guys. We just had a blast. Like we came up with nicknames for each other. Shut up. We spent time with each other every day and every night.
We had dinner together.
We
every
had dinner
night.
together. It was nice just to collaborate with each other on our sessions. It was really just interesting to sit with you guys and just to hear your perspectives, to hear different things. And of course, we didn't talk about the convention all the time. We talked about the Olympics were going on, and and we talked about other things. But it was nice to just sit with other people and other students in our department and learn about what you guys wanted to do and just bond to come together
Get
and
to
bond
know other people in our
because
department.
I have 2 majors, so I have in other departments, but in like my other department I have some of the same kids in every single class and we never talk. So I feel like this convention was a way for us to get together and to bond, to
build relationships.
To
with
build
classmates.
relationships. So like Andrea, she called us the nerd herd. Well, yeah, that's kind of what we came up with because
I mean, all of us were really excited to get to go and to learn everything that we did. And then at the end of the night, when we're sitting down for supper at 8:30, because that's when we were getting done with everything, it was long days, we're sitting down at 8:30 for supper. And I mean, the first thing we would talk about is, a couple of us would go to sessions together every day and we would just debrief on everything that we learned. So even in our free time while we were down there, like, yes, we talked about other things, but the first thing on our agenda to talk about was always, well, what did you learn today?
Yeah.
And
we were
how was
excited
that?
We were
And
excited about
oh
what
my
we
gosh,
learned.
that connects to what we were learning about in this session that we were at the same time that you were in that one. So we couldn't have possibly gone to both, but since we were all there, we get to hear about it anyway.
Yeah.
So it's like even if you didn't go to a session, like you could learn about it because we all went to different ones.
Yeah.
So essentially,
and you get the only interesting parts.
Yeah.
yeah.
Then you didn't have to sit
You have to sit
through
through a 3-hour session.
But yeah, the bonding experience was probably one of the most amazing parts of this because, I've had all of you in classes, but I've never actually like connected with anybody.
Yeah.
But just sitting down to dinner and talking or trying to figure your way through Denver.
Oh my god.
It was a great experience of even the foresight of one day this will also be like a colleague relationship that we're all of us are so across the board with what we're doing.
But if we needed each other, I'm not gonna lie. Like if I had a situation, I would be comfortable calling any of you or emailing you and being like, "Hey, I know you're kind of into this. I've got a situation. Can you help me out?" And I think that this convention made that possible.
Yeah,
And
this is
something else we also talked about as being a huge benefit to this convention was that it was kind of our first trip going into a professional setting. And a lot of the other people at the conference were in their master's, doctoral, or already professionals. And we were, as far as we know, we were the biggest group of undergrads there. And we still had people addressing us as if we already had our graduate degrees, saying, oh, well, do you work with children? And we're like, my peers are, some of my peers are 18.
But they encouraged you to, talk about what you wanted to talk about or ask questions because they wouldn't even know if you were an undergrad or not.
Right. So it was learning how to present ourselves in a professional manner and maintain that for a few days and get treated as if we were professionals and address others in the same way. So I think it was a growing experience for us, not just with what we want to do with our careers, but just growing as people too. So I think, is that what everyone?
I think so.
Yeah. All right.
Thumbs it up.
So thank you all for this opportunity.
Yeah, we really appreciate it.
We
Definitely.
would like
It was.
especially
definitely
thank the
worth it.
dean and everyone who contributed to getting us
There.
funding and helping us just go on this trip.
Please
Well, you could fund
keep
it
doing
next
this.
year for Washington D.C.
Yeah.
Definitely ultimately, we think that this trip was a huge benefit to our educations, and it should be continued as much as possible. We understand that it was mostly possible this year because of how close it is to Chadron. We found out that the convention for next year is in Washington, D.C., which
Even
is
smaller conventions that are just about psychology
Yeah.
that are
Yeah.
near us, I think would be beneficial.
We would be willing to go to anything that you are willing to offer.
Yeah.
just outside educational experiences were really beneficial to all of us. So thank you so much for your time, energy, and efforts.
We appreciate
We'll
it.
see you in
Yes.
class.